In the 200 years before 1688, the English had mostly not gotten involved in the religious and political wars in Europe. They tended to keep apart. The English monarchs wanted to save their money, not fight these wars. They established some colonial outposts, including in North America, but tried to avoid direct fighting. The, by electing King William III as king, they undertook a different policy because he, as the leader of the Netherlands, was already at war with France, a war that was the la cause commune, that was the cause of his whole life. He was convinced, and I think most of the English leaders were convinced, that Louis XIV of France was a tyrant. His triumph would deprive them of their liberties. They saw how Louis revoked the Edict of Nantes in 1685, persecuted the Huguenot Protestants, took their property, separated them from their families. Many of these refugees came to London and told their stories vividly. And so they did not want, they wanted to cabin in to reduce the power of Louis XIV, who was the great continental empire and had huge and very successful armies. And England really embarked on policy of containing France and of establishing what in time they started to call a balance of power, to see that no single state in continental Europe should establish a sort of mastery of the whole continent that would have such great power that it would then be capable of threatening Britain itself. So they fight wars against royal and revolutionary and Napoleonic France. Most, from 1688 to 1815, they're at war very large parts of that time with France. They fight wars against Imperial Germany in World War I. This was seen as cabining in the power, the tyrannical power that threatened to expand and be a hegemonic power over Europe and the world. And then, of course, the fight against Hitler's Germany that reaches its culmination in 1940. And America gets called into this fray. In World War I, the United States enters on the side of Britain in April 1917, and plays a significant military part in the successful conclusion of that war. In 1940, you have the spectacle of Winston Churchill, a direct descendant of John Churchill, the first Duke of Marlborough, who played a key role in the Revolution of 1688, determining that Britain will fight on the seashores, fight in the hills, fight in the streets, but will never surrender. And you have key aid being provided to him by Franklin Roosevelt, who is a descendant of Dutch colonists in the colony of New Amsterdam, coming to the aid of Britain in its moment of dire need, in a way sort of reminiscent of the Dutchman William of Orange coming over to England and becoming king in this revolution of 1688-89. Churchill, stands fast, the descendant of the Duke of Marlborough. Roosevelt, the descendant of Dutch landholders in the New World, comes to his aid in important ways. At a time when democracies were really in peril, when Hitler and Stalin were allies after the Hitler-Stalin Pact, and they are in command of most of the landmass of Eurasia, or threatening to be in command of it. And that was a very critical and difficult hour. I mean, we came closer to George Orwell's 1984, I think, than most young people growing up today have any idea. And we had people stand up against that and fight it successfully. And, fortunately, we were able to win World War II. Hitler attacked Stalin. Stalin's forces prevailed. So we won with the help of a terrible tyranny. And then we have the Cold War, where United States and Britain stand against Soviet communism. Today, the U.S. and Britain and other English-speaking countries, notably Australia, and now Canada, have been allies and leading the fight against Islamic fascists who attempt to destroy our civilization. And, that's an enduring foreign policy The English-speaking peoples have seen it very often as their duty to contain and reduce and destroy the power of evil empires. And they have been successful in doing so. So something got started in 1689, which has turned out to have enormous consequences for the world. What would the world be like if Churchill and Roosevelt had not stood up against Hitler, had the alliance of Stalin in 1940? It would be a very different place indeed. And the example that was set in 1688-89 and that has been followed largely ever since is responsible for that.